All right, welcome to day 10. Quick review of day 9. We worked on the nav bar. So if you look over at the Chrome browser, we made links to home, register, log in, log out. I'll click right now and we sign in user, null. Those are all seem to be working, no warnings in the console. And then our main work for yesterday was the slash login, the login component, and doing the combining the registration and the login form to share one component. And we basically did that by setting in our props, we had some navigation props, match and then path, and we can tell what the slash is currently in our URL. And we grab that and then we switch the contents of the button, and we switch the contents of the fetch request. And that's all we had to do to reuse that same component. It's actually pretty cool. Okay, so day 10, what do we want to do? I want to be able to send requests. Well, we can already, our backend's already wired up for submissions. So the whole idea is that a user's going to write some code in CSS and make some art and be able to submit that, both the HTML and the CSS. And yeah, so we basically need a form for them to do that. So maybe we'll actually copy from our login and register component, because it'll probably be very similar. So, and then they'll be able to see their submissions. So what should we call this? So instead of saying slash submissions, I want more like, well, I guess actually our front end can say slash. Yeah, so in our front end, there'll be a link for slash submissions, but it'll show all the submissions and have a form to enter a new one. That'll be our objective. So up here, we want to say slash submissions. And it take us to a new component called submissions. That's definitely our first objective. So I'm going to save this README. Open up the File Explorer. The shortcut is Control-B. And then in components, I'm going to do a new file, submission. Or I guess I'll pluralize it, submissions, because there's going to be many submissions, and then you can enter a submission. Close out the Explorer, Control-B. Still getting used to that shortcut. Okay, and now we want a React functional component. So we import React from React, and const submissions equals, for right now, no props, and we'll just return a p tag with submissions, just so we see that it's working. And then so this file is available everywhere. We can default export it, or if we want to do it correctly, export default submissions. Save that one. And now I want to go to app.js. So if I press Control-P in VS Code, I can type in app.js and just enter, and it takes me right there. And I'm getting used to that shortcut too. So some of these new shortcuts I'm trying to do for the live stream that I really never did before. So it's kind of cool, kind of fun. So yeah, let's do a new route because we want to show hide this component at certain times. And we want to show the submission component. And I can press tab and have it auto imported in. And we want to show that component only when our path is /submissions. When I save this, our path is already /submissions, so we should see it right away. And yeah, we're good. So the word submissions. And notice we still get our navbar. Our navbar is always showing. But this reminds me of something about our navbar that I think I want to take a detour and customize. So when a user is logged in, and we'll go ahead and log in with max@yahoo.com, 123. When our user is logged in, I don't want to show register or log in. I want those to be invisible in the navbar. So I think actually we should customize that. So let's go over to our README. And so these are some leftover navbar. Well, I'll say navbar. Oh, whoops. These are some leftover things I want to do on the navbar. Show, hide, register, log in, and log out actually, depending on if the user is logged in. And since there's only one objective, I'm just going to make it not have a main one. So taking a little detour with the /submissions and customizing the navbar. Okay, let's work on that. So pull my navbar back up. And right now, so these links are just always showing regardless of anything. But I want to know if I have a signed in user or not. And the way to know that is right now user is being stored in our global context. So to grab that global context, I can use context. So let's go ahead and set that up. I'll switch this to return. I need my parentheses back. Or Prettier will put them in for me, so that's nice. So now I put the return statement just so we can write some code that doesn't automatically return, because I want to use context. I'm going to auto import that in. And the context I want to use is our custom context we've already created called context, which I auto import in as well. And they appear on the top here. And now in my context, the only thing I believe I've stored right now is user. And we can verify that by checking out our app.js. So here's the only things I'm providing to my global context: user and set user. And I don't need set user at all. I just need user. So, okay, so back to navbar. I have to destructure what I want. And the only thing I want, the only object I want is user. So I'm grabbing that. And now I'm just going to console.log user to make sure it worked. And this feels strange that we're grabbing kind of props, I guess not really, and we're not even using props. Let's see if it yells at us at all. So still looking good. And here's the information we received. Token and a user. Oh wait, what's going on there? Does that look... Okay, no, okay, I guess that's right. For a second I thought that looked weird. That token was repeated twice. But we have two properties in this object, token and user email. So that's kind of... we really could use any piece of information from this user. As long as user is not null, we're actually good. So we can keep it simple. Yeah, we can keep this simple as possible. At first, we'll tweak it if we need to. So, okay, so if a user exists, we don't want register and we don't want login to appear. And we only want logout to appear. So let's start on logout because that's easier. So the way we write that is we can say user and this component. So if user is false or equal to null, this expression will stop evaluation and this won't get read or expressed. If user exists, it'll be truthy, and then the second part of the expression will be read and evaluated and returned and appear on the screen. So so we only want logout if there is a user. So let's try to save this, see what happens. And logout is still there. But if we now log out, oh, that's awesome. Okay, you see that? So now that there's no user, logout does not appear. So that logic works. And let's do the opposite logic, basically. We only want these to appear if there's not a user. So let's just write the same kind of logic, but opposite. So I'm going to wrap this in our JSX and then put not user end. And oh, it doesn't like this because there's no top level parent element. So I'll put a React fragment. Save this. And looks good so far, but when we log in, max@yahoo.com, password 123. Nice. So the register and the login disappear and we just have logout. And then to test it one more time, if we press logout, we see register and login. So yeah, this is the little trick we can use to get that working. All right, so let's return to the README. And we show and hide register, login, logout, depending on if the user is logged in. All right, back to /submissions. Right now, if we manually put it in our browser, that's another thing. I actually, let's go back to navbar for a second and we might as well put that in a link to submissions because that'd be nice. So we'll add another objective, show navbar link to to submissions. and so navbar. And do we want logged out users to be able to see submissions? I think so. I don't think it matters. So we'll do it, we can do it right after the home. Link, the only attribute link requires is to. So where do you want your path to go to? And we want it to go to /submissions. And then in here, we just put whatever we want the link to appear visually. And after the submissions, we'll just do a break because I don't want to get into styling right now. So we click on submissions and it takes us to submissions and everything's still working fine. So back to our README, we get a check. Show navbar link to submissions. And now let's work on our submissions component. We want to first see all of the submissions that have already been made and then give the option to submit a new submission. We're going to keep this very bare bones and simple. Our first project. Because I don't even know. I'm going to deploy this just to show you guys, but I don't know if I'm going to like make this a real thing. I think there's maybe other projects I want to spend more time on. But we'll see. So returning to our submissions component, what did we say we want to do? We want to grab all our old submissions. And I don't even remember if, so I didn't log into MongoDB. I'll go ahead and do that. I don't remember if we had old submissions or not. We probably do. We probably do just when we were testing and like Postman and stuff. Which reminds me, I want to see quickly in Postman, I want to verify that our backend routes are working. So if we hit up /submissions with a GET request, so we do have some submissions here. And then obviously with a post request, I'm pretty sure it'll work. So I don't know why I pulled up MongoDB just to remind you guys that it exists and it's here. Here's all our submissions, but we saw them in Postman just the same. So that's fine. But now this is tricky, right? How do we grab them? So our submissions are in the database and we want them to display them now in our front end. We have some options. We could do it in the global context, or we could fetch it locally in this component. Since we're probably not going crazy on this project in the front end, we can just fetch it locally from this component. I think that'll be fine. And you always want to do your fetch requests, your server requests, in what used to be componented mount, but now is useEffect. So we auto import it by just typing useEffect and then tab. And then the two arguments this function takes is the first one's a function, which will fire whenever something in the dependency array that we put here changes. Changes. And if you put a function, I don't know if when you invoke that function it gets called. I hope not, and I don't think so, but that was something I wanted to check out and forgot. But normally, if a value in this array changes, it'll fire. But if you put it empty, there's a little trick. It'll fire when the component is first mounted. So here's a good place where we make our async calls. And what do we want to do? We want to fetch. We want to do exactly this. We want to do a GET request to this. And I know I stored base URL already, which I can auto import. And base URL is equal to localhost 5000. And it even has a /, I believe. So now I just have to say plus submissions. And we should be good. But to get at, this is going to return a promise. And to get that promise to resolve, we have to put a wait. And I want to call this something. I'll call it data. And for right now, I just want to console.log the data. But I believe I'm going to get an error before this works. But let's walk through it one line at a time. So I'm going to press save on this. And it should run this code. And our first error says line 6, cannot use keyword awaits outside an async function. Here's the thing, you might be tempted to put async right here, and let's actually do that, but we'll get another error or warning. React basically doesn't want you to do that. For whatever crazy behind the scenes React business, it doesn't want you to use async on its main like wrapper function. But we can get around this by, I think we can better get around this by making this an iffy. So I believe if we wrap this entire thing in parens and then more parens, I thought that's how you did it. Maybe not. Does this one, you know what? Since I'm blanking on the iffy, the structure of an iffy, I'm just going to make a function. I'm going to nest a function. I'm going to call this fetch submissions. I'm going to set it equal to the code we just wrote. I'm going to put that in here. And now we can actually put async before the parens. And then we can just call this function down here, fetch submissions. So it's a little ugly, a little bit of extra code, but it's the way it has to be in use effect. Now the code runs, we check our console, and we get this response, and we have to apply .json to this response, which returns another promise. Which returns another promise, and to resolve it, we put the keyword await, and then this will give us our submissions. Oh, and I forgot to console.log submissions. And we get back an object with a property of submissions and an array with 4 items, and we have our different submissions. But now instead of console.logging them, I'd like to set them as my state. I believe. Yeah, I think that's the most appropriate thing to do. So I want to use state in this component. To do that, I just type use state and then use auto import and then parens. Let's see what it requires. I don't think it requires anything actually. Oh, it doesn't require anything, but you can put what you want your state initially to be. And what I want it initially to be is null. And then what do you want to call your state? You use the destructuring, fancy new ES6 destructuring array, and you put whatever name you want. So I want submissions. And then the second thing, the second function it destructures is how to set that first one. So we say set submissions. And now here, super easy. I actually love these new hooks. Set submissions. And then to test that it worked, I'm going to console.log submissions in our main function. So we should get a null and then some submissions. We get 2 nulls and then submissions. And maybe you have the question, why do you see 2 nulls and 2 submissions? This rendered a total of 4 times for whatever React mysterious reason. I mean, it's not mysterious to someone, but it is to me. But basically it rendered 4 times, which is normal and fine. So that all worked, and now it's just a matter of how you want to display your submissions. Again, I don't want to do any styling in this app because this is just the bare bones of kind of MERN. And I'm going to use, so I receive submissions, I'm going to map over them one at a time. So I want to iterate over submissions one at a time by using map. And each iteration I'll call a submission. And what do I want to produce? I want to produce well, what's in a submission? So a submission is just an object. With CSS, HTML and user ID. So for right now, let's just do the CSS. Sorry, let me do a div first off. And in that div, let me put I don't know. Let me do, sorry. Let me do an unordered list. And in the li, I'll put the CSS, and then I'll inject the CSS submission.css. And then I'll do another tag with HTML, and I'll just say submission.html just to see what this looks like. It's certainly not going to be pretty. And we got an error. Cannot read property map of null, line 17. So what's going on here? See how we're trying to iterate submissions? JavaScript and React are so quick that they beat this use effect, which is async and takes time. So right now, submissions is null, and I'm trying to say .map. So I have to make sure submissions exist before I iterate through it. So one way you could do this is say, make sure submissions exist and then do whatever. So remember, if this first argument is false, it just stops evaluating. If it's truthy, it'll evaluate the next argument and express it. So this will work, but I'm curious, no, this won't work. Submissions and submissions.map. Oh, why isn't that working? Line 17, submissions.map is not a function, But this shouldn't even run if submissions is false, right? Okay, so somehow submissions is being evaluated as Okay, let me put this to false for 1 second and then console.log submissions again. I thought it was just an array. Should be. Oh, you see that? It's submissions dot submissions. Submissions is an object. And we can see this in Postman, maybe easier. So we do a GET request. This whole thing is an object that contains a property submissions and then the array. So here we actually want to do submissions. And here we want to do submissions dot submissions dot map. Yeah. That's what we want to do. Or to make this cleaner, yeah. So this, I think this will work. Let's save this. But then I have a little refactor, which might work. So this works. our beautiful submissions we did. 2, 3, and 3 again with a spelling error. Yeah, but instead of setting submissions, let's right here set submissions dot submissions. And then we can make this cleaner by deleting this. And we get a warning, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So in React, when we iterate over anything, it wants a key to keep track of unique elements. So a good key is always the ID, but on submission, do we have an ID? Yeah, we should have a ._ID, I believe. And we do. Awesome. So here's our beautiful front end displaying each submission. So check our README. We did show all the submissions. We did that one, but now we just want a form. Now we just want a form for the submissions. And what's the best way to do this? I could just do it in, I think I'll just do one big component. I think I'll do that. I think I'll just do the form underneath here. Something like, you know, in H3, enter a new submission. Let's just do that. And so what do we want to do? What do you need for a submission? You need the CSS, the HTML, and behind the scenes you need to know the user ID, because that's what so here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to send a post request to submissions with CSS, I'll just copy it from here actually, sorry. So here's what we're trying to do. We need CSS, we need HTML, and we need a user ID. The user ID we can grab easily from our context. we can just use context and grab user. And then, but we need manually a form for CSS and HTML. So let's do that. Let's do a form. And let's do an input. Or you know what? It would actually make more sense to do a text area because it's going to be kind of big. And it'll be fun because I never use text areas. So let's do 2 text areas and see how that looks. And is there a placeholder on text area? Yep. Placeholder, we'll do CSS. And for the one below, placeholder, we'll do HTML. Beautiful. In our form, we also want a button of type equals submit. And let's put some label in there. Submit. I guess that looks all right. I mean, it doesn't look good. It looks fine for our purposes right now with no styling. So, okay, so now actually, since we want these to be controlled input components, we have to wire them up to our React component with value and on change and all of that stuff. So let's do that. So here we want to put value equal to we'll just say CSS input, and this doesn't exist yet, so let's actually make it, and that's going to be a piece of state. And yeah, we're getting the warning CSS input is not defined. So let's go ahead and use state again. So this time we want to call it CSS input and set CSS input. Yeah, and then we're just going to say use state. And initially, a lot of the times when you're working with inputs, you want to make them actually strings. If we don't, we'll get a warning. But yeah, that's the best thing to do. And then let's copy this line and just change it to be HTML input and set HTML input because we're going to need that as well. And save that. And now let's go back to this, and you'll notice as we type, I'm typing right now in this CSS box and nothing's appearing because I want each keystroke to update this value in state. And to do that, there's a property in text area called onChange, which will fire a function every time this input element changes. And a typing in it counts as a change. So what do we want it to do when a user inputs a keystroke? Well, there's automatically, when you write a function here, automatically provided to you is an event argument, which we can see in the console. And then this will fire every time there's a change here. So I'm typing now and there's a change. But what we're really after is event.target. It won't let me expand here. I don't know why. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. But what we're after is event.target.value. That's what's keeping track. That's the property that's keeping track of the input. Yeah, and now in our console, we can see each keystroke. So now let's go ahead and use our set CSS input to be this value. And now each keystroke, the value should be being updated. Yep. And now we're getting a nice value. And we need to do the same exact thing for HTML. I'm going to actually copy the whole property, paste it in, and just change set CSS to be set HTML input, and everything else is the same. That's nice. And we'll test out both, and they're working. And now the benefit is CSS input and HTML input are stored in our state. So when our user clicks submit, we can use those two items in our state to send over to the server. Because our whole goal, again, is to just send a post request to here. So let's start working on that. So on your form element, you can do an onSubmit property, which will fire when the form is submitted. And a form can be submitted by a button inside it being clicked, or just the user pressing enter. And it'll fire whatever function you want. And I'll call this function handle submit, but I haven't actually created it yet. So I'll get a warning. And let's go ahead and write this function. I'll say const handle submit equals a function with no arguments right now. And what do I want to do? I want to send a fetch, which is going to be a post request, to base URL. I'll auto import that if oh, it was already imported. Base URL plus, where do I want to send this to? And we want to send it to /submissions. But the slash is already there from our base URL. So I'm going to just say submissions. And then here, by default, this is a GET request, but we have to change it with options to be method, post. And also, I believe we need headers. And I have to cheat and look up what that needs to look like. So I'll Google fetch post request example. I've already Googled this a few times, and I'll use this one. I've used this one in the past. So I'm going to copy these headers. And what's interesting is, so this is something that Postman does for you automatically. Assign these headers with accept application JSON and content type. So it's just giving your server a heads up of what to expect. And in Postman, if we click on headers, we can see these same headers. Where are they at? I know they're hidden somewhere because I've seen this before. There's like a show hidden ones or something. Oh, okay. So right here, content type application JSON. So it just does this for you. And I think there was another one, but they're here somewhere. But we're not as lucky in when we're writing a fetch request, we have to put them in manually. And then the other thing we have to specify is the body. So here we have to recreate this. So we want to do JSON.stringify and pass in an object And we want an object with user ID, CSS, HTML. So we have the CSS, and where's that being stored? It's actually CSS input, right? Because that's what we called it in our state right here. And then we have HTML because we called that HTML input. But right now we don't actually have user ID yet. We need to get that. Right now I'll just make it a string. Yeah, so we need the currently signed in user, we need their ID. So let's do that. We need to grab that from our context. So the way we grab anything from our context is we type useContext, auto import it in. The one argument takes is our custom context we created, auto import that in. And then we destructure whatever we want from there. And what do we want? We want our user. Save this, make sure there's no errors. Okay, we get a warning, user is assigned a value but never used, but we're going to use it right now. And right here, I'm going to put in the user ID with user dot, and I don't remember how we structured our user. So the easiest way, we probably did dot underscore ID is my guess. No, I can't remember. So let me back up a step and do console.log user to refresh my memory what it looks like. Oh, that's not good. Oh, we're not currently logged in. So we need to actually log in. max@yahoo.com, 1, 2, 3. And now I want to go to submissions. And now I get my user information. So we actually want user.user. User.user.underscore ID right here. So let's try to type that. User.user.underscore ID. It's a little ugly, but it is what it is. So again, we get this error because user doesn't exist yet. It's quicker. The JavaScript code here is quicker than the context, I guess. So let's do that. I wonder if we can do the user and, oops, in our console.log. I'm not actually sure. So again, I'll do login, max@yahoo.com, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And cool. So now we get our user ID. It's working. Oh, you probably can't see because of my head. So this one, hopefully you can see. Okay, so now I want to take this. This is going to be equivalent to our user ID. Put it in our body. And we should be good to post requests as long as we're logged in. Yeah. But this is interesting, right? So let me think about this a second. So this is going to post a new submission. This is going to post a new submission. Oh, but then we actually, I wonder how you, okay, so I wonder if we should manually set our submissions after we, so here's the issue I'm seeing. This maybe will successfully submit a submission, but then how does our global context get updated. Do we have to manually set submissions again? Because in our app.js, oh no, not in our app.js. We're grabbing submissions locally. Okay, I forgot. I thought they were in our context, but they only exist here. So you know what I want to do? I want to somehow call, I actually want to call fetch submissions after this is over. Because then it'll refetch the submissions, which is what we want it to do. And then it'll set the new submissions. So I'm going to put a wait here and use async here. And then after this is all done, I want to call fetch submissions. And that will refresh the submissions. I hope, I think. Let's try that. Fetch submissions is not defined. Ooh, okay. So it only is defined in this use effect. So I actually want to bring it outside the use effect. Okay, seems to work. And it grabbed our submissions. That all looks good. We're not logged in though. We need to be logged in. max@yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3. Thanks, Jack. See, you're my first comment ever. I didn't see it till now. I apologize, but thank you. It's like your first dollar bill when you open a new business. Just here to cheer you on. Checks that. Okay, so everything looks good. We're fetching our submissions, but we need it to be logged in. Now let's click on submissions and just do test 1, test 2. Kind of nervous. Click on submit. And it didn't work. Oh, I know why. Because our form reloaded, because that's the default for an HTML form. But we can prevent that super easy. And when our form reloaded, it killed everything. It refreshed the entire app. So, how do we do that? We find our handle submission, our handle submit form, and for free we get an event because this was fired by the event handler or this property on submit. So for free we get the event, and then we can do event.prevent default. Let's save that. We got to log in again. max@yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3. Click login. Click submissions. Okay, test 1, test 2. Click submit. Post to localhost 5000/submissions. Internal server error. Shoot. I wish it had a more useful error message. So base URL plus submissions. That should be good, right? It's the same as this. Just to test that this is still working. Yeah, so our server is definitely still working. So let's try one more time, I guess. right, I'm saving this, but it's not clearing the console, I don't think. Let me try again. All right, I'll try to log out. Is this not running? Let me check my terminal. Something seems a little off. Okay, no, it's fine. Just being paranoid. Okay, so let me try to log in again. Max@yahoo.com, 1, 2, 3, log in, submissions. Oh, so our postman did get posted, but unfortunately this did not yet. So it just says internal server error, which is annoying. It's not very helpful. On our back end, maybe we could check that route. But also it might be smart to console.log our body to see if everything's looking good. Let me do that. Or body. Let's check the example one more time, make sure that looks good. Fetch, headers, method. Oh, is it because this isn't JSON maybe? Or this has to be JSON? Is that it? That might be it. Probably not, but maybe. And then I also want to console.log these things. Let me do that just to make sure. Console.log these three guys. Okay, so we have to be logged in again. And click submissions, and we'll try anything. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so in the console.log, it looks fine actually. I guess we have to check our backend to see what it's doing, because we need a better error message. Oh, maybe no. I think it's they're both unique. That shouldn't be the problem. Whoops. Let me switch to our backend real quick. See what's going on. So we did a submissions router. So let's find that. Here's our post request. Oh, maybe I can turn on the terminal here, and I wonder if I do a request here, if it'll no, it's not even console.logging the error right now. response.json submission. Huh. Yeah, I'm kind of blocked. I'm not sure. Let me console.log an error and see if it produces an error. So it doesn't even look like it hit it. Is it even running this route? No. Localhost. My server is running though. We tested that in Postman. All right, I guess I'm majorly blocked, so I'm gonna have to figure it out and then go over it day 11. Yeah, I'm not sure. Everything looks good to me. I'm not sure what's causing the error. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to debug offline and then have the answer for you day 11. All right, that kind of stinks, but yeah, not really sure where to go. So, all right, hope you got anything out of that. Thanks for checking it out. I'll see you next time.